Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Back to Ashes. I am your host, Phoenix. To all of the elite members, thank you so much for your continued strong support. I deeply appreciate you. For anyone looking to join Back to Ashes, all of the information can be found down below in the description. Without further ado, it's time to sit back, relax, kick back, grab a snack, or tuck in and get warm, and prepare for your dose of vocal melatonin entitled True Nightshift and Let's Not Meet Stories. Right after this intro, there will be an ad. I'll read the first story, there will be an ad. And after that, there will be no more ads within this video. Disclaimer, this video is for educational and entertainment purposes. A couple of years ago, I used to work at a popular fast food restaurant. There wasn't much activity, but I had two experiences. I was working the closing shift one night when I had just finished handing out a drive-thru order. To give a quick layout, when you walk away from the drive-thru area about 8 feet, you turn left and it's a straight 25 to 30 feet down to the back door of the restaurant, passing the food prep table and the dishes along the way. Once you get to the back door, you can only turn right towards the back dry food storage room, which is pretty small. I started walking away from the window, looking for my manager, as I needed to ask her something. I turn the corner and start heading to the back to wash the dishes. When out of my peripheral, about 25 feet away, I saw someone walk from the back door to the back storage area. I thought, oh, it's my manager. Let me ask her. I walked to the back and turned the corner, and no one's there. The one place to go was to the roof, but no one ever goes up there, especially at night. I then realized I really only saw the mass of a person, but not color at all to insinuate they had clothes or anything. I walked back to the front and my manager was in her office the entire time. Not super creepy, but yeah, it was super weird. Another time I was closing with my friend and our manager. Our restaurant was under construction as they were remodeling the entire dining area, including the front counter section, except the kitchen. So, they added temporary walls behind our front counter to block off the entire construction area, and they only added a small door for us to access if needed. So, we would not see the dining area at all unless we opened the small door. Since we were only open through the drive-thru, it was super slow. Plus, the dining area was pitch black, so I'm sure most people thought we were closed. All three of us were standing next to the manager's office and just talking, trying to pass the time. And it was really quiet as well. My manager was about to start talking when all of a sudden we heard two knocks coming from the dining area. We all just stared at each other and double-checked the drive-thru window in case it was someone who came up to order. No one was there. My manager told my friend to go check it out, and my friend said, "Oh, hell no, you go. You're the manager," and started laughing. He ended up checking and saw nothing or anyone outside. We were a little spooked, but downplayed it to someone who probably decided to play a joke and was just tapping on our windows. When I was younger, I lived with my parents in a very small village. It was only one road. On one side there were some houses, and on the other side there was a beach. Where the houses and the road ended, there was a hiking trail, but I wasn't allowed to go on it. Our house was maybe 4 or 5 houses from the end of that road. This particular day, I was walking our small dog, a dachshund. I went to the beginning of the trail and was getting ready to turn around and go back, when suddenly a man approached me. He was maybe 35 or 40 years old, was wearing red sweatpants and a stained t-shirt. His glasses seemed too big for his face, and his hair was greasy and a bit long. He said hi and started chatting with me. I remember getting really weird vibes from him, but being so young, I kind of dismissed it. But thinking back, I clearly remember his piercing eyes. He was staring really intensely at me, and the whole time he had one hand in his pocket, moving it slowly up and down. It seemed very odd to me, but back then, I had no idea what he was doing. He asked me all sorts of questions, and that is when my dog decided to take a dump. I remember thinking, oh, no, not now. Why do you have to do that now? The man got a weird smile on his face and he said, "It is shitting." He then kept staring at my dog, doing its business, as if he were fascinated. At that point, I just knew that there was something very wrong with this man. He then asked me to go with him to see his room. I don't remember what I said, but I just knew that that would be a really bad idea. He tried to convince me by saying how nice his room was and I should see his big TV. As soon as my dog was finished, I made up some excuse and hurried home. When I got home, I told my parents about the creepy encounter, and I remember my dad calling the people whose house the guy said he lived in. They explained to my dad that the man was mentally ill. I think maybe it was their son. My dad said that that was no excuse and that they had to look after him so that he could never invite small children to his room again. This was my very first and only time I met this man, and for that I am really grateful. Hello there. I'm a shift manager at a gas station. By a woman in her late 20s who is 5 foot nothing. I get the attention of all sorts of creepy men in the middle of the night. One time I was talking to a customer, asking him how he was, and he begins to tell me about a fight that he had with his girlfriend. I honestly don't care, but I'm customer service all day, so I sit and listen, or better yet, stand and listen. I gave him some advice and sent him on his way, considering it's about 2 in the morning. I don't really think much of it, considering that this is a common occurrence and there's nothing I can really do about it. For the next 3 nights, this man, who before the first initial night, he came into my store I had never met, showed up and would not leave without a full conversation with me. Mind you, this is during the times we live in today, so I'm really not trying to stand and talk to someone less than 6 feet away or for more than 15 minutes. Despite it being the middle of the night, there is still a lot of work to be done. I'm on the 4th night. I'm outside changing the trash bags in the gas station, trash cans, as well as the ones directly out front. Next thing you know, there's that dude, the same one over the last couple of days. He starts a conversation with me, which is whatever, but whenever I try to lose them by turning the corner and collecting the trash bag for the next trash can, he follows me very closely. Then he tries to get me to look at something inside of his car. Eventually, I signaled my cashier through my eyes that I'm uncomfortable. Beforehand, we had talked about this guy because this is not a unique situation at all. So she eventually comes out and says that my other person needs help doing whatever, and I'll say goodbye to the dude and I go back inside, which he did not follow me back into. The next day, we're looking out for this guy. How darn creepy he is. Throughout the entire night, he didn't show up, which is awesome. But at 6 a.m., right before I was leaving and handing the keys off to the next manager, the same manager called me over saying that there is a call for me. I'm not the only manager there, so they've had to know my name and ask for me specifically. I answered the phone and said this: "Thank you for calling, redacted. This is redacted. How may I help you? I've been a regular customer of yours for a while now, and I'm calling to ask if I could go down on you if I give you $500. What? Repeats what he said before. Me hangs up the phone. In shock, I turn to my boss, the other manager who was there, and say, I was just asked if I'd let this guy go down on me, he would pay me $500. My boss, middle-aged white man, says to me, $500? You can get away with more than that. Needless to say, I don't work at that location anymore. So I'm currently traveling the sea with my two brothers. We just arrived in Sagan this morning. In the evening, after dinner and a few beers, me and my two brother, older and younger, I am the middle brother, decided to sit on the beach in Howden Park and have a quick smoke. We were chatting away, sitting on the bench, when I noticed a Vietnamese man repeatedly looking at us and walking in circles very near where we were sitting. At first, I wasn't too concerned about him. However, my spider senses were alerted. Then, a minute or two later, I noticed another Vietnamese man dressed as a Grab delivery driver acting suspicious and repeatedly looking at me and my brothers. The stalkers were both on the phone, and I believe they were communicating with each other. Being in a foreign country, my youngest brother told us to leave. However, it was a good 600-meter walk to the park exit. As we were walking, I noticed both Vietnamese men had got on mopeds and were following us through the park, stopping behind trees and watching us. They then overtook us and sat at a bench further down the path, waiting for us to cross their path. Being aware of this, we left the path and started walking on the grass, as the crow flies to the nearest exit, avoiding the men. We are 100 meters from the exit when my younger brother looks behind us to see one of the men sprinting towards us. My younger brother took a fighting stance, standing his ground against the man, and asked what he wanted. The man's posture became very small and he began talking very quietly. Both me and my younger brother kept a good distance and told him to leave us alone as we walked backwards towards the exit. Noticing the second assailant also approaching us, wearing motorcycle gear. However, my older brother decided instead of trying to get out of the situation, he got closer to the whispering Vietnamese man to hear what he was saying. Both me and my younger brother were yelling at him to get the hell out of here, but he was being a total dipshit. He was being groomed. It took the Vietnamese guy 5 seconds to win my brother's trust. Then, out of nowhere, when my older brother was leaning in very close, trying to hear the man, the Vietnamese guy grabbed my brother's crotch, grabbed his dong. He was shocked. I was ready to fight, expecting to be robbed or something, but the dong grab was super unexpected. After that, we started shouting and the men fled. For context, both me and my younger brother were competing MMA fighters. I posted one of my fights before, so yeah. However, the whole situation was unexpected. We didn't engage in any violence towards the men, just shouted at them. End of story. Wild, huh? Be careful in the parks at night in Vietnam. Dong grabbers, let's not meet again. And for you all listening to the story, what's your take on this? I decided to share some of my personal stories. Perhaps this will help me get it out of my system a bit and entertain you folks. Keep in mind, English is not my first language, so I apologize if some of the bits don't make sense. A bit of context for you, dear listener. I have a side job as a security guard, where I do a night shift once a week. Once a month, we have a meeting with the other guards. We work in a school with approximately 100 students. It's a 2-story building with a patio. On this specific day, we had a meeting just before my shift. It was business as usual. Camera maintenance, discussions of work-related situations, some jokes. At the end, as everyone was leaving, a piece of the office ceiling fell. It was odd, but nothing too strange, really. I managed to put it back together when my shift started and carried on. As expected, it was quiet after the others left, and I noticed that the music player we always kept on was off. For clarification, it's a habit that one of our colleagues has, and we just go along with it. A kind of feng shui thing. He insists on keeping this small MP3 player in our office, always playing classical music at a low volume, and we respect that only he touches it. And I swear it's always on, but on this night, it was off. I decided to investigate and turn it back on. It was a little dark because I had turned most of the lights off, so it was hard to see if the player's visor was on or not. I leaned in to check, and suddenly, the damn MP3 player started to play Wagner really loud. I got scared. I jumped. I jumped really high, jumped like a cat high. It was a true jump scare. It's one of those nights, I thought after taking a breath. I took some time to look through the cameras, watching the neighborhood slowly disperse. The office is on the second floor and we can see the street. Also, the neighborhood is a bit bohemian and we have a bar next to the school. Nothing unusual. Besides the feeling of being watched, I shrugged it off and went about my activities, drinking coffee, watching the cameras, reading a book. 2 a.m., time for my round. Lights are off, everything is dark, and I'm instructed to keep it that way. I step out of the office and begin to walk the hallway. It's normal to hear some creaking in the building, but this time, there was a creak following me throughout the hallway. It wasn't from the ceiling, the floor, or anywhere else. It was right beside my ears, or behind my head, along with the already mentioned feeling that someone or something was following me. I looked around, but there was only darkness. It followed me throughout the classrooms, creaking close around me all the way to the door that leads to the first floor. The stairway is open. The creaking stops, but not the feeling. I make my way through the patio, heading to the door that leads back into the building. The creaking starts again. The balcony smells like something is rotting, but I look around and there's no sight of food or bugs. I even checked the trash cans. Nothing. The cafeteria had the same smell, but not as intense, and there was no physical evidence of it. Creaking, creaking, creaking. As soon as I get to the workshop in the back, something falls in the dark. I shine my flashlight in the direction of the noise and see some scrap metal on the floor, but I don't know what caused it to fall. At this time, I'm trying to breathe steadily and keep myself calm. I was not only afraid, I was angry. By this point, I wanted to face whatever was bothering me. Last stop, the warehouse. Let's see if the brooms are okay. I open the door. A broom falls. Turn the light on, which I immediately turn off. I was angry. Really angry. If it now wanted light, I wanted the dark. I make my way back to the office and realize the creaking had stopped. I feel that I am alone. The night remained calm after that. I'm not sure what happened, but that's it. Another strange day at work. So that was my first story. The first one that happened when I was beginning that job. One of the older guards, let's just call him Anthony, was showing the ropes to me and another colleague. We will just call him John. We were halfway through a shift. It was 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. and having a snack together in our office. This was nice because we got to know each other, which makes this job easier in a lot of ways. All of a sudden, we hear a noise coming from the hallway, like someone was walking towards our office. Clear footsteps. We all heard it. But to the cameras in the hallway was empty. So John decided to check it out. He stepped out of the office to darkness of the hallway. The sound of footsteps stopped. John also stopped and felt something in his pocket. He grabbed it and came back with a keychain. It looked like a set of older keys from the building, because it had the same type and number of keys, but the shape of them wasn't the same. We even tested the keys without success. We still don't know what to make of it. The other one happened during a round through the school. It was almost a year after this. I was just beginning my round, lights out except from the office. But at the end of the damn hallway, I saw something. I could see something circular and the size of a soccer ball. It was very dark, but I could see this black on black thing moving beside the wall. It reminded me of a bacteria or a cell, but black. I didn't turn on my flashlight because I was afraid that it would go away. So I did what any human would do. I tried to touch it. And to my surprise, I received an electrical shock, just like I had accidentally touched a power outlet. I decided to leave it and continued my job. I don't know what you guys will make of it. I'm just telling you what I went through. I don't have any explanation for these things, and writing this down just made me realize that everything happened in the hallway. Anyway, please let me know what you all think. I'm a 36-year-old female in Sweden. I have worked in mental health care for the last 18 years, mainly with people with psychotic illnesses like schizophrenia. I was working at a group home for 9 years and were very close with my coworkers there, especially two females. The last few years I worked there, another female started working there. Let's just call her M. And the four of us grew very close. She was very timid, shy, friendly, and we got along well. She was, however, often on long-term sick leave because of her own mental health issues. So we didn't meet much at work, but she always showed up at our after-work dinners, so we continued to stay in touch, even when she wasn't well enough to work full-time. She told us that she had a history of schizophrenia herself, just like the patients we were treating, but that she was medicated and hadn't had an psychotic episode for years. Since I have an education in psychiatry and a long experience with schizophrenia, I have no judgment towards people suffering from the illness, and it didn't bother me being friends with someone who had a diagnosis like that. And even after what I told you, I still feel the same way. In the summer of 2023, I had moved on to work at a new place, also within mental health, but this time forensic psychiatry, like a halfway house for mentally ill murderers, etc. The four of us stayed in touch and still met every now and then for dinner parties. Em told us that she had been evicted from her apartment because of an incident where she had accidentally entered her neighbor's apartment in the middle of the night. She told us that in the huge apartment complex, the doors all look exactly the same, and that she simply walked in the wrong door by accident, and the neighbors had created a scene out of pure drama and reported her to the police. I somewhat felt that while that sounded out of proportion to evict someone just from that, perhaps the landlord took that kind of action because he judged her based on her medical history, and I felt bad for her. I questioned her if something else happened, and she claimed that it didn't, and that this was the full story. In Sweden, it's very difficult to get a contract for an apartment when you have gotten evicted. You pretty much get blacklisted. Em asked me if she could move in with me, since she was literally on the street, literally homeless. I said, "Of course you can." I've always gotten myself into uncomfortable situations by saying yes, instead of thinking about myself, and I had no idea how severe the situation would get when I said yes to M. I live in a pretty small apartment. It's a one-bedroom that pretty much only fits a bed and a desk, a living room that fits a couch and a TV, no room for an extra bed, a small kitchen, and a small bathroom. I have 2 cats. We decided that Em was going to live in the living room, and I offered her to throw my couch out so she could have a bed there. but she said that she was fine with sleeping on the couch, since it's comfortable enough. I insisted on giving her a bed, but she declined. There's a door between the living room and bedroom, but between the living room and hallway, there's just an open arch, so she wouldn't have total privacy. I hung up a thick velvet curtain covering the arch, so it at least gave her the sense of a door and more privacy than nothing. There's another door from my bedroom to my kitchen, so I have 2 doors to my bedroom. I have to have one of them open at night since my cat wants to go in and out. And they also have their litter boxes in the bathroom and food and water in the kitchen. I naturally kept the kitchen door open and not the living room door, since that's where Em lived and we wanted to keep our privacy somehow. She wasn't working at this time because she was on one of her long-term sick leaves while I was working shifts, so sometimes I had to get up at 6 a.m., and sometimes I didn't get home until like 11 p.m. I have really severe insomnia and need to combine Ambien with promethazine. And even with this, I still wake up easily. I told her that I would appreciate if she could try to stay quiet those nights when I have to get up at 6 a.m., but that it's fine if she's loud when I'm off work or when I do the evening shifts. She was a heavy smoker and a coffee drinker, so I bought her a coffee machine. Yeah, I know I'm a weirdo who don't drink coffee very often, so I didn't have one, to make her enjoy her living situation more. The coffee machine and the sink is placed right outside my bedroom door. The kitchen is very small. So, the first night together, I had to get up at 6 a.m. for my shift. As usual, I had a hard time falling asleep. Em had been up several times that night to go out to smoke, and I woke up every single time. At 5 a.m., she started making coffee, and since it's literally outside my bedroom door, I got wide awake from the sounds of it. I asked her in the nicest way possible why she was up this early, asking if she had any plans today. I mean, she's on sick leave. Why not sleep at 5 a.m. if you can? And she said that she couldn't sleep. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I would just appreciate if you could wait and make the coffee till 6 a.m. since I really need this last hour of sleep because of work." Adding to why I need my sleep is that I have epilepsy that gets really bad when I don't get enough sleep. I usually get a lot of seizures when I don't get at least 4 hours of sleep. I knew that I would probably get seizures at work now, meaning that this date would be both stressful and potentially dangerous for me since there's a huge risk that I can fall and hurt myself. And it's not a good thing to get cramps and seizures amongst mentally unstable criminal clients who you are supposed to care for. I know that it's not an ideal situation to work in that field with my condition, and I can inform you all that I did quit after only 6 months. She said that she really wanted coffee with her cigarettes, but that she would try to wait the next time I have to work. I accepted it and went on with my day, but things didn't get better. She continued to wake me up early in the morning and through the nights and continued to promise to stop, but insisted that she really wanted coffee with her cigarettes. I suggested making the coffee the night before or drinking iced coffee or Coke instead, but she didn't want that. I may add that she demanded for me to be silent at 10 p.m. because that's when she wanted to sleep, and I respected that. She used to get these moments of binge eating where she would empty my fridge and pantry from everything I had. I remember this one time when I had bought a big loaf of bread, and she texted me 30 minutes later after I left the apartment saying, "Hey, I'm sorry I ate your loaf of bread. I will buy it back once I get money." Like an entire loaf of bread in 30 minutes. I had told her when she moved in to fill at home and what's mine is yours. So I couldn't really get mad, but it started to annoy me for 2 reasons. It was getting kind of expensive since it was such huge amounts, and it was always in inconvenient times of the day, like after an evening shift when the store was closed, and I'd come home hungry, and she had emptied the kitchen from everything I had just bought the same day. Em had long black hair that was everywhere. all over the sink, the floor, the bathtub. I'm no clean freak, but I think anyone could understand that this isn't the nicest thing to step in or see everywhere in your house. She also left her fingernails and toenails on the bathroom floor. It was also pee drops on the toilet seat every time she had been to the toilet. I saw a silverfish on my bathroom floor. Never seen one before. And they eat hair and skin and nails. So I figured this fella probably enjoyed life because of the new dirty condition my bathroom was in. At first, I didn't want to say it straight out because I thought it would hurt her feelings and I didn't want to make her uncomfortable. So I just put a broom and shovel in the bathroom to imply that we needed to sweep the floor more often. This didn't seem to work, so after a while I told her in the nicest way possible with a smile on my face. Do you think we could try to clean the floor in the bathroom more often? We tend to lose some hair when we brush it, and I'm afraid we may get pests. I saw a silverfish the other day, and I don't want it to get worse. I always made sure to say we instead of you, so she wouldn't feel attacked. She promised to think about it, but nothing changed. I started dating a guy and was head over heels for him. He was also in a roommate situation, so we had a tough time getting any alone time. I asked him if there's any chance that we could get one night to ourselves every now and then in the apartment, and that she, of course, would get the apartment to herself as well. She didn't like the idea and claimed that she had nowhere to go, no friends or family. Now, I wasn't asking her to leave for 24 hours, just a few hours, so we could just get some quality time together. She could just go to the library or take a walk or whatever. I was at work for 8 to 10 hours, 5 days a week, so she got a lot of time for herself. One of our old coworkers realized that this was really tearing at my mood, to never get any time for myself, and I started feeling really suffocated. She offered that M could stay the night at her place. After all, they were friends too. M said she didn't want to bother her, but we told her that she didn't. They're friends. She's more than welcome, and I really just want one night to myself and my guy. I didn't understand why she made such a big deal over leaving me in the apartment for just one night. She eventually accepted and spent the night there, and I spent the night away the next week, so she could get more alone time too. When I came home the next morning from my night away, I saw that my cat's water bowl was completely dried out. There was no spill on the floor, and it looked like it had been wiped out with a paper or towel or something. I had filled it to the brim just the night before. I asked her how this was possible, and she said that the cats must have tipped it out. But there was nothing on the floor, like I said. My cats are overly social and usually cuddle up with strangers after just a few minutes. I noticed that the cats withdrew from her more and more over time. In the last couple of weeks, they never left my bedroom except for when they ate or used the litter box. It seemed like they were scared of her, which I couldn't figure out since she was so timid. I had this old saucepan from the 60s that meant a lot to me. You probably wonder how a saucepan can mean a lot to someone, but it was my grandmother's, and it's the only thing I have that belongs to her. My mother used to cook for me with it when I was little, so it has a great nostalgic value to me. She burnt it one day and made no attempt to clean it. She just left it on the stove and went out to smoke. I found it ruined and cried. She didn't even say I'm sorry. She also broke dishes several times and didn't bother to replace them or apologize. This added to my frustration with her, naturally. It had been probably going on 2 months now, and she kept waking me up at night, kept binge eating my food, never cleaned, never left the house, scared my cats and ruined my things. I realized she stole my prescription sleeping pills, lots of them as well, and I only got one per night, not more or less. And as you already know, I really need them. I had 20 of them in my nightstand when I left for work, and when I came home, they were gone. She denied, which is pretty hilarious since no one else could have been there. My frustration was getting heavy. The summer heat was strong, and I felt locked up in my tiny bedroom with my 2 cats, never getting any time to myself, never any alone time with the guy I was dating, except for once every 14th day. My apartment was messy, and she was stealing from me, etc. Out of nowhere, my old elementary school classmate texted me on Facebook, asking me how I know M. He had seen that I had posted on Facebook that we were roommates now. I told him that we were old coworkers and that she needed a place to stay because she got evicted. He said, "I know. Do you know why she was evicted?" "Yeah, she accidentally went into her neighbor's apartment." He said, "That's not the full story. She broke in and snuck up to their sleeping baby with a knife in her hand, but luckily the father woke up and wrestled her down and managed to save the baby." I immediately felt sick to my stomach. Could this be true? It would certainly explain why she was evicted, but it just sounded so horrible, and she is such a timid, nice girl. I had so many questions, but my friend had the full police report. Apparently, the couple that M had broken into was his ex-girlfriend and her family. It seemed that M had a psychosis during the break-in, but those parts weren't public. It was, however, clear to me that she had been lying to me about what had happened and about how long she had been mentally stable. I started getting quite paranoid now, and I was already frustrated with everything and really wanted her to move out. We did, however, have a contract that she had 30 days notice. I knew that if I asked her in a harsh way, it would mean 30 days of chaos until she moves out. So I wanted to handle this as nicely as I could. I started looking for cheap hostels for her that I could suggest to her so she wouldn't be out on the streets. I sat down with her and told her that I loved living with her, and I feel really horrible for this, but I just miss my alone time and that the apartment is too small for 2 people. I said it wasn't personal and that I wouldn't want to live with anyone right now, and that I wished it would have worked out, and that I am really sorry and hope we will remain friends. She looked crushed and said that it wasn't possible. I showed her the hostel I found and said that I understood that it wasn't the ultimate situation, but I really needed her to move out because I felt suffocated, and also the summer heat was making it tough to always have the door to the bedroom closed, and that it was tough for me to not get my sleep, etc. She said okay, she was going to move out, but not until 30 days had passed, and I said of course. The first night after our talk, she got up and made her coffee at 2:30 a.m. I nearly had a mental breakdown. I was gonna get up at 6 and couldn't go back to sleep. I asked her in the morning for probably the 10th time to not make coffee until I get up, but she didn't even answer me. She just sat in the sofa and stared out the window. I said, "M?" and she kept staring. I was freaked out but left for work. She kept being weird, kept making a mess, kept waking me up, kept eating my food, and all I could think about was the incident with her and the baby and the knife. I eventually got so pissed off about being woken up by the coffee maker that I unplugged it, took it out, and stored it in my attic, which she had no access to. It may be childish, but I was getting so tired at this moment. My sleeping pills were stolen, and I was starting to feel like Edward Norton in the beginning of Fight Club. Well, the next night I woke up at 4 a.m. by her making coffee in a saucepan. Not my grandmother's saucepan. That one was ruined. I tried talking to her again, explaining the situation, but she just stared and didn't reply. Me, being frustrated and on the tipping point, took the saucepan and stored it in the attic as well. I know, but I was going crazy and just wanted her to stop but these nightly coffee routines and take the hint. The third night, I had the guy I was dating sleeping at our place because I was getting really paranoid now over her weird behavior. Not speaking with me, just staring into space. I woke up from my very light snooze by him poking me. He whispered, "Look." In the doorway, M was just standing silently staring at us. This was just like a scene from a horror movie with her long black hair over her face. I kid you not. I didn't say anything at first because I wanted to know if she just stood there for a second, doing something by the door. But I realized after a while that she was actually just standing still staring at us. It reminded me of the ending of Paranormal Activity when Katie just stares at Micah in the final scene. So I sat up and said, "What are you doing?" But before I could finish my sentence, she just slammed the door shut, and I heard the sound of something metal falling on the floor and her running into the living room. I yelled out, "You need to leave," and started crying hysterically because this was turning into a fucking nightmare. Of course, I didn't go back to sleep, and I was really happy that I had company that night. I just kept asking myself, had she done this before? Stared at me in my sleep? The next day, when I got out of bed, I opened the door that she had slammed shut and saw a kitchen knife on the floor. So that was the metal sound I had heard before she ran off. I took all of my knives and locked it in the attic as well. I then asked a friend of mine to come to my house and be here when I tell her that she has to move out immediately, that I cannot wait 30 days. We were on 27. During the conversation, I really tried to stay calm. I know she has a mental illness. I know she means no harm, even though I was so frustrated I couldn't hate her. I was mostly scared and tired. She, however, didn't even answer when I talked to her. She just kept staring out the window. She left the apartment and sent me a text, instead saying that I was disrespectful for bringing a friend over to her place. Nighttime came, and I thought this would be a quiet night finally. No coffee maker or saucepans. But at 3 a.m., I woke up by her burning dried coffee powder in a frying pan. At this moment, I just felt terrified of her. Her face was dead. Her eyes were black. I suspected that she had gone into a psychosis. I stopped the fire and she just ran off into the living room in silence. I knew she had an appointment with her psychiatrist the next day. And while she was away, I packed all of her things. I then sent her a text telling her that she needs to pick them up and give me my keys back, and that I will give her money for a hostel the upcoming 26 days. She didn't reply. The guy I was seeing came to keep me company in case she would fight about it. She didn't. She left the keys without looking at us and left. Our coworkers, who were friends with us both, told me that she moved in with a guy that she was dating, and she stayed there for a few weeks until she somehow amazingly got an apartment, all on her own. She started working again, and I was really happy to hear this. She seemed to do well. Then, in January of this year, one of our old coworkers told me that M had called her and told her that everything must burn, that she has a baby that she must save, and other delusional stuff. She had called 112, Swedish emergency number, like 911, about this, but they had not taken it seriously. M had then proceeded to burn her entire apartment down because the voices in her head were telling her that she has to burn everything to save her friends and family. Her neighbors had tried to rescue her from the fire, but she had fought them off and ran back in and poured liquor on the fire to make it burn more. She was arrested and sentenced last week for aggravated arson. She will serve her time in a mental institution or prison for a long time, possibly forever. What's ironic is that she will probably be in the facility where I used to work and end up where she used to work herself. My old coworker was a witness at the trial, and apparently she had stopped taking her medication, Abilify, because she thought that it made her feel numb, and she thought she was stable enough to function without it. Apparently not. She had also stopped taking her medication the last few weeks when she stayed at my house. So then she stared blankly into space. She was going into psychosis. When she stared at me with the knife in her hand, when she burnt the frying pan that last night. It's disturbing to think about what would have happened to me and my cat if she would have stayed, or if I would have been a heavy sleeper. I also think about what would have happened to that baby that she snuck into before she was evicted. And yeah, I know it's crazy that I didn't just throw her out by then. It was complicated. The reason why I haven't been able to talk about it with my friends is because they sympathize with her and have minimized my experience. And they think that I made a bigger deal out of it than I believe it has been. I sort of understand it since they have never seen that darkness in her eyes that I saw those last couple of days. An update on May 16th. I just remembered some other things that I wanted to add to this story. There were several times when I was going to work early in the morning that she occupied the bathroom by taking long baths. I patiently tried to wait until the last minute before knocking and asking her if she could get up and get back in after I had gotten ready and left for work. Just another thing that added to my frustration. I fell really ill one time when she was staying there. I didn't know at the time what it was, but I woke up early in the morning one day feeling very nauseated. On my way to the bathroom, I literally shat myself and threw up at the same time. It takes like 10 seconds to get to the bathroom, so you can imagine how bad it was when I didn't even make it. I had a really high fever and kept throwing up and shitting myself all morning, and anyone who has been this ill would understand that you want the bathroom to yourself. Actually, I think it's pretty understandable that you'd want to be completely alone when you were this ill. My head was spinning and I was nearly hallucinating from the high fevers. Anyway, working in healthcare, I also have a natural instinct of not wanting to spread infections. So my first thought was that besides wanting to be alone, I didn't want to risk giving whatever this was to M. So I begged her the moment I noticed I was ill to please leave for her own sake. I could barely speak because it would make me throw up that easily. Our friend in common had asked her to water her plants that week, so she had the keys to her place and could have been alone there. M refused to leave, and I swear if I had the energy to slip out of the window and fall to my death, I would have, but I couldn't. I was half shitting, half flaying on the toilet, like a bucket in my lap, my head sort of resting in the bucket of puke because I couldn't hold it up that high due to the fever, and I just begged through whispers for her to leave so she wouldn't be ill too. I told her, "What if you get sick soon too? We can't share the toilet. I will be here all day. You should go to her place before it's too late. Please." Eventually, she left, pissed at me. It turned out I had a severe case of food poisoning, and I was well again after 2 days. But my God, the fact she refused to leave is something I felt I had to add to the story because it made me so frustrated. I also went through our conversations and saw me asking her how long the door had been closed. That reminded me that she used to shut my cats inside my bedroom while I was away at work or wherever, so that they couldn't eat or drink or use their litter boxes. She claimed she just recently closed it because she was trying to sleep, but I remember she did it in the middle of the day one time, just a few days before she had left. I remembered something that had happened to my best friend and I a few years ago, and I figured I would share it with you all. Well, my best friend at the time and I were seniors in high school. We went on a weekend trip to visit my grandmother, a couple of hours from my town in Georgia, USA. The town we lived in was comparatively small for the state, but one of the biggest towns within a few hours. But we had to travel about 2.5 hours through tiny, somewhat redneck towns to get to my grandmother's place. We were on our way back home when we had to stop at a gas station, literally in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking cornfield, cotton field, streets with no signs or lights, not even stop signs, and definitely no cell service. The convenience store attached to the gas station had maybe a couple snacks inside, but looked deserted from the outside. No other cars or people in sight. And we didn't bother to get anything other than gas. I paid with card, mainly because I didn't want to leave my 5'1" 100-pound friend alone in the car while I went alone inside. Another car pulled up to the other side of the single gas pump while I just started pumping gas. And because of everything I'd read online, I already had a weird feeling and decided to stay alert and stand outside of the car with my driver's side door open so my friend could see and hear everything going on. A thin, late 50-ish older man got out of the car and seemed to be paying at the pump and standing beside his car while he got gas. But after a few seconds, he walked around the pump and maneuvered himself around my car to stand within a foot of me and ask if he could pump my gas for me. Luckily, the gas nozzle was locked, so it was pumping without me having to hold it. And I immediately placed myself between the opening of the door and the man, and prepared to either shut the door with me inside it or move and slam it between me to protect my friend if necessary. I calmly told him I was fine, no thank you. He looked me up and down with the corner of his lip tilted up and said, "Pretty girls like you shouldn't be out here all alone, and you definitely shouldn't have to do this by yourself. Let a man help you, baby," and covered my hand with his own as he reached for the gas pump I was holding. I jerked my hand out from underneath his and slammed my car door shut, thinking the last thing I would want is him jumping in my car and driving away with my friend in the passenger seat. Orange flag started tinting red, and my usual overly polite demeanor turned serious as I remembered something I had read that said it was better to be safe and to seem mean rather than to be polite and uncomfortable. So I responded and said, "Sir, get away from me. I can pump my own damn gas, and I've already said no thank you. Leave us alone." He didn't move, only raised his chin and managed to make eye contact with me, all lip tilt gone. I stared him up and down and figured I'd gotten enough gas to last us enough time to get the hell out of there, or wherever we were. So I maintained eye contact, pulled the nozzle out, and basically threw it back into the pump before getting into my car and drove away before he had even moved. As we drove away, I glanced in the rear view and saw that his car wasn't even being filled up with gas, telling me he was driving by and decided to help a damsel in distress. My friend was shaking the whole way home, telling me she would have just let the man pump her gas. But I'm just glad some of the confidence I'd gained from reading the internet helped me stay attentive and respond confidently enough to get the hell out of that situation. So, creepy, helpful gas station man in the middle of Ghost Town, Georgia, let's never meet again. And that, dear listeners, brings a close to these true Night Shift and Let's Not Meet stories. I would like to take a moment and thank the other members of Back to Ashes along with the new listeners. Thank you all so much for your support. For without you, I would not have a voice and Back to Ashes would not exist. If you are sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you comfortably. If you're awake, I hope you've enjoyed this collection. Until next time, please take care of yourselves. I'll be reading to you soon. Have yourselves a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Peace, love, and light to you all.